if you've ever walked away from a parenting moment thinking, yeah, that really wasn't who I wanted to be, but still had no idea of how to find your way back to the relationship, then this video is for you. The reality of conflict between you and your child is incredibly painful because you know your child needs you in that moment, but they can't say what it is they need or what they're feeling. They can just show you through their behavior. And you obviously care, but it can be so difficult to show exactly how you care through the noise of it all. And this disconnect between you is incredibly painful for both of you. And it's not because anybody failed, but it's because neither of you had what you needed in that moment. And this is where repair is needed. You, as the adult, get to show your children how to return to reconnection, to bring the relationship back to a feeling of safety and connection. But it's very difficult to do that if you don't know how to reconnect yourself. There are a few obstacles in the way, and one of these is often in a moment of conflict, even when the conflict hasn't been necessarily external. So, for example, if you shout, then you're going to feel guilty. But if your child shouts and you don't like it, even that feeling of not liking them in that moment can cause feelings of guilt and particularly shame. And we can leave a situation, even when outwardly we've done everything fine, just caught up in so many awful thoughts like, I'm a terrible parent, or how can I be like that with my child, or I've ruined everything, I've damaged them, I've broken their trust. They'll always remember this version of me. And this loop of shame tricks us into believing that our worst moment is who we are. And the more we believe it, the harder it is to reach for connection, because inside we're thinking, well, I don't deserve to repair this, and they shouldn't trust me. But the reality is you can't repair from inside shame. You can't lead someone else out of the dark when you're still believing you belong there. So before we do anything else, we have to interrupt that loop, not with fake positivity or platitudes, but with truth and kindness. Yeah, I did mess up, and I'm still trying my best. I'm here, I'm always trying, and I'm still worthy of love. Now, this is a lot easier to do when you have other people around you. If you're lucky enough to have a loving partner, friends and family who support you, then they can provide you with the words that you need that you sometimes might not be able to in those moments when you're by yourself. But some parents do have to figure this out alone. I mean, I did. I thankfully had access to therapy, and I was already training to become a counsellor myself, which definitely helped. But there were plenty of moments when it felt like there was no one there, just me on the bottom step, having given myself time out because I was unraveling. And I would imagine a kind grandmother speaking encouraging words to me and placing a hand on my shoulder to soothe my nervous system, just telling myself, I'm doing something really hard here, and I'm still here, I'm still trying. And other times the support came through podcasts and online resources, through teachers I'd never met, offering words that helped me just feel less alone and less broken, and that it wasn't just me. Now, the path to repair can often start quietly like this, in the pauses that we create for ourselves, to remember that we still have choices. Now, you don't have to build this capacity to repair relationships alone, but if you are doing it on your own right now, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. In fact, you already are, just by being here and listening to this. That means you are doing it already, and that matters. Now, another challenge to finding our way back to repairing a relationship is a misunderstanding about anger. Now, many of us were taught that anger is wrong, And even to feel angry, never mind expressing anger, can create a sense of shame and even fear at your own reactions. But real clean anger isn't the problem. In fact, it's a very healthy emotion that tells us, hey, something's not okay, and I can do something about it. It gives us the energy to make that happen. But rage is what happens when you don't believe that, when whatever's needed feels impossible. Maybe it feels bigger than what you can offer. Rage is anger plus helplessness, and it can be terrifying. Now, one of the most powerful steps in dismantling shame is understanding that what rises in you isn't necessarily bad, but it can indicate an unmet need. So you don't have to punish yourself for being angry. You need tools to understand what your body's trying to protect. Now, this doesn't excuse hurtful behavior, but it does give you a way back to yourself. And then when you can see yourself clearly, then you can lead your child back to repairing the relationship. Unfortunately, there's another element that can get in the way of making things better. And it can be a moment that we often don't notice that it's happening. And it's when, oh, I don't like what my child is doing, starts to feel like, I don't like my child. And that's painful because it often comes just when you're stretched the most. So here's what I recommend. Catch the thought. When you notice yourself thinking unkind things about your child, like they're being manipulative, or they're ruining everything, or I just don't like them at the moment, I can't be around them. Instead of pushing those thoughts away with shame, just soften a moment and remind yourself the behavior is different to the child. I don't like what they're doing, and I love my child. And by separating the behavior from the child, you're protecting your child. You're diverting your anger and your dislike to something that is separate from them. So rather than you being against your child, them becoming like an enemy, you can both be on the same side. Now, this is good for you too, because it gives you a healthy channel to vent your feelings. And I really don't like that particular behavior, and it can feel justified, and you're not hurting anybody in the process. And at the same time, you're protecting yourself, because you get to see yourself as a person who cares for your child. Rather than directing your anger at them, you're directing it at the behavior, and that makes you a better person. So this approach protects both your child and yourself. Now, this week, I'm not going to give you repair strategies specifically to share with your child. I'll introduce those next time. This week is about this inner work that comes before the words. It's about completing the repair with yourself, about telling yourself, yeah, I don't like how that went, and I can understand why it happened. And I know that I'm a good person and I can come back. You're separating your feelings from any individual, rather than making yourself wrong and causing yourself to fall into shame, rather than directing anger or even rage at your child and then feeling guilt and shame as a result. You're protecting both of you. And this isn't just a mental exercise. It's not a clever trick of the mind. You're actually guiding your own nervous system so that you can come back to a place of strength that you can then share with your child. And even without the next steps, your child will feel this, whether they realize it or not. Because when you start to believe you're still trustworthy, you make it easier for them to trust you again too. So if you are sitting with a hard moment that you've been through, wondering if you've ruined something with your child, I just want you to remember you haven't ruined everything. You haven't failed, but this is an opportunity to grow. And repair doesn't mean pretending that nothing happened. It just means saying, yep, I see what happened, and I'm willing to be kind to myself, to be kind to my child, so that we can come back to our relationship. Even when things are messy, even when the words aren't perfect, even when it was you who lost it, repair begins with the decision to return, to prioritize the relationship over whatever the argument was about. And every time you do that, you teach your child that love is real, even when everything is stretched.